Okay, welcome back to this series where I am breaking down the building process of this 60 by 40 metal building. I want to say a big thank you to ACT Building Design Software. Without them, I would not have been able to bring you this series or have this really cool experience. So if you're looking at building a garage, a workshop, a house, whatever it is, you do not need CAD experience or engineering experience to design a building. They do all of that for you. Typically engineering takes a week and then you get a full kit delivered to you in 2 to 4 weeks. In video 1, me and my team put up the wall framing. Then in video 2, I showed you what we did to put in the roof framing. This video is gonna pick up there. Next, we need to lay the actual roof panels, which are 43 feet long, since I have an overhang on both the front and the back. Before I get into the process, let me tell you about a few dilemmas. These panels are so long, they can't just be picked up in the middle or they will bow and break. They need to be supported at both ends. That's not an issue since I have my own equipment. I have a forklift and then I rented a SkyTrack. However, the second obstacle is the approach to the building itself. The panels will actually go on like this. So it'd be far easiest if we could come at the building from one of the short sides. Then we would be able to manually walk over each panel into place. Well, on one end of my building, I have a cell phone tower. So that end is out of the question. Then on the other end, I have my floating deck, making that end out of the question. So that leaves only the front. To see if this was an option, I took the forklift over and tested out the height to see if it could extend high enough to get the panels up and over. I think the forklift is gonna be too short, so I'm just gonna see going up. I think we got it, gentlemen. Look at that. I say we go up from this end. All right, that checks out. The next thing to figure out is we're gonna be lifting up the panels horizontally like this. However, remember that the roof is laid out like this, which means once we get it up, we'll then need to pivot every single one of the sheets. I do have 2 scissor lifts on site, so we were thinking that this wouldn't be a big deal. I will touch back on that in a moment. But for now, we had our plan, so we started executing. Step 1 was to get all of the material itself onto the forks of both machines. And this ended up taking a lot of manual work. Again, if my site layout was a little bit different, then we would have been able to use the equipment to move it into place. But that wasn't the case, and so we had to hand walk the stack one by one and restack it on the forks. You can't slide the panels on top of one another. Any debris, whether it be a leaf, a stick, a rock, anything, is gonna create a scratch in the paint, which will lead to rust. The guys were strong enough to get to the pile and then in one fluid motion, toss out the bottom leading edge and then lay it down onto the stack. I don't have that upper body strength, so then my method was to lay a wooden sticker on the end so that once I got there, I could reposition myself and then use both my hands to set it down onto the stack. Then I could lift it while somebody repositioned the sticker to the next time. The sheets are easy enough with a few people, but it's still a grip and a shoulder workout. And by the end, we were all counting down to the end of the sheets. So step 1 was done. Step 2 was lifting it into the air. The thing to pay attention to here is lifting both ends of the material relatively at the same pace. Our system was Nathan got me and Jacob into position at the building and then guided us up. Jacob would watch Nathan, and then I would watch Jacob and try to match his pace as much as possible. And it's funny, there are a few nerve-wracking steps involved in this building, but I think stuff like this is so much fun. The teamwork, the operating of equipment, moving thoughtfully and working through problems, to me, it's just a blast. And look at that, it worked out great. You can see that on both of our machines, we extended the forks by putting pallets on them. Good job. Heck yeah. That's step 2 done. Step 3 is pivoting the material into place. Note that when we came up with this plan, our plan was to fully extend the scissor lift, and then while one person drove, the other person would move the panel into place. Lo and behold though, they have a safety feature on them that prevents them from driving when fully extended. Yes, I tried to find an override. I was not successful. This meant that on the high end of the building, Jacob would have to stand on top of the lift basket to even reach high enough. And before you say it, no, it's not OSHA approved. but it was the only way that we could get it done. And after talking it over with Jacob, we were both confident in our roles to be able to do it. So the way that we set it up is I would drive and Jacob would maneuver the panel. In my role, I needed to be smooth, which is kind of hard in these jerky things. So a little technique I used was to stabilize my wrist on the housing around the joystick control. I also needed to pay close attention to Jake. I am not the one setting the pace here. Then for his role, thankfully Jacob is a weirdo, an amazing weirdo, that loves a natural shoulder workout, which this was. It's lift and scooch, lift and scooch. You can see he's working the panel carefully over each purlin and beam. Since it's so long, a lot of places can get hung up. And of course, he's doing this while not falling off the basket or scratching the panel. Once we got the panel to a certain point, Jacob could lift and kind of hold it up while I drove it forward. But that first section of the run, that was a balancing and strength testament. Once we got it horizontal, Cameron would be at the point of the pivot to move the entire sheet into place, overlapping the previous panel. A few things to adding a new panel to the previous one. First, there's the closure strips. These are foam strips that come with self-adhesive on them to make applying them easy. Another thing is we would run a solid bead of caulking where the panel would overlap the previous. To make things efficient, what we would do as a team is Jacob and I would go back to get the next panel. Gary would not only lay the bead of caulk, but they would also finish screwing off the previous sheet. As anything else, the first one takes the longest, but over the course of the next few panels, we really got into a nice groove and it took shape quickly. Oh, and that's another thing we did. We clamped a sheet of plywood into place here so Jacob would have a platform to stand on and make getting off a sheet easier. This platform allowed him a spot to get high enough to do this without scratching the one underneath. Once we got roughly half the roof covered, we had to switch up the process a little bit because the panels we started pivoting were on top of the laid panels. So to prevent scratching, Gary and Cameron started laying down wooden stickers to protect the laid panels. Now that we had more walking room up top, Amp the videographer was able to get up on the roof itself, so here's a few shots of the process from that perspective. Me and Jacob pivoting the panel into place, the guys overlapping it to the previous one, then the guys running in screws. Once we got mostly done, maybe 5 sheets left, we threw our platform down. Again, it was just clamped into place temporarily. And then we had to manually walk the remaining panels into place. So we would once again spread out across the sheet and then do it as a team. Let's go ahead and watch this last one go into place from the drone, as is just always such cool footage from the sky. Note that I did choose intentionally white for my roof because it makes a massive difference to the inside temperature of the building. Oh, I thought this was a really cool shot. At the end of the day, us wrapping up and getting lowered as a team. I love how every step in the first few days makes such a drastic difference. I really hope that you guys are enjoying the build so far, and don't forget to leave me your questions in the comments as I'll do an entire video at the end of the series answering them. Yay! Massive step done. Stay tuned for the next video where we're going to sheathe with panels once again, but this time we're going to tackle the walls. I will see you then.